If you are a Catholic or have even a slight interest in the faith, you've probably heard of Judas the disciple who betrayed Jesus, a symbol of sin, treachery, disloyalty, greed, and 1,000 other evils. More than 2,000 years have passed, and Judas remains in the minds of all who know of him as a cursed figure, a key apostle in the event that led to Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. But is that truly the case? Did Judas really betray Jesus? Is he truly a man worthy of condemnation? Let us remain calm and open-minded, as today we will tell you a different story about Judas, or rather, a different version of Judas, strong, responsible, loving, devoted, and incredibly brave. Before we delve into this story, we want you to understand that this is purely a theory. It could be right, it could be wrong, depending on how one chooses to perceive it. It's like a game of black and white, where white needs black and black needs white. You may choose to believe it or not, but regardless, we hope you listen to this story with an open heart. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content related to the Bible. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I pray that you receive abundant blessings from God. Amen. Let's begin. Judas Iscariot was one of the 12 original apostles of Jesus Christ. He was predestined to betray Jesus to the religious leaders, the elders, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees. When Jesus called Judas to follow him, he knew that Judas would ultimately betray him, leading to the crucifixion. Yet he allowed Judas to follow him and learn from him, giving Judas the free will to make a conscious decision about his final actions. This aligns with the old saying, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Now, after following Jesus for a long time and learning the lessons he taught and the secrets he revealed to him and the other apostles, Judas made the decision to betray Jesus. No one truly knows why he chose to betray Jesus aside from greed, as the elders, Sadducees, Pharisees, and religious leaders paid him 30 pieces of silver to do so. After receiving the silver, Judas told them that to correctly identify the man, he would greet him with a kiss. That night in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Judas led the guards to where Jesus was praying along with Peter, James, and John, he approached Jesus and kissed him on the cheek, signaling to the crowd who he was. After Jesus was captured, scourged, mocked, humiliated, crucified, and killed, Judas was overcome with guilt and remorse for his betrayal. He returned the 30 pieces of silver to those who had paid him, and then took his own life by hanging himself from a tree. This is the full story of Judas that we all know, intertwined with the story of Jesus. And we believe this to be true simply because it is the story written in the Bible. We do not wish to begin this story by declaring what is right or wrong, for the very nature of it may not contain a clear right or wrong. We start by presenting what we believe to be true, from which we can then explore a hypothesis that leaves us uncertain about what part may be right or wrong within it. Have you ever read the Harry Potter series or watched the movies? Are you like us, who from the very beginning assumed that Snape was the traitor, a servant of Voldemort, and the one who ultimately killed Dumbledore, the man who trusted him unconditionally? Surely you harbored anger towards Snape for almost the entire story, right up until the very end, until you learned that it was all an act, that Snape had accepted the role of the villain and the label of a traitor to fulfill the task entrusted to him by Dumbledore himself. Until you realized that the man who seemed to be trying to harm Harry was actually risking everything to protect him. That feeling of discovering what Snape truly did behind the mask he showed to the world was utterly devastating. In that instant, we all became the villains, while Snape emerged as the true hero. We had cursed him only to realize he did not deserve that condemnation. Do you feel regret for thinking ill of Snape, for hating him, yet at the same time find yourself admiring and even loving him? Snape endured so much scorn from the beginning, hiding a heart of warmth and unwavering loyalty beneath a cold and cruel exterior. He accepted all the insults and slander just to protect the person he loved. And only after his death did the truth about this seemingly despicable man become shockingly and unexpectedly revealed. And you know, it was that same feeling when we read the story of Judas, though these are two completely unrelated tales. One is purely fictional, born from the brilliant imagination of J.K. Rowling. The other is still uncertain, possibly true, possibly not. The conclusion depends on each person's belief. The recently discovered story of Judas, titled The Gospel of Judas, presents the entire event of Jesus' death from Judas' perspective. This story, written on ancient, tattered manuscripts that were recently found, has been scientifically verified as originating from the time of Christ, not a forgery. And from the fragments of this ancient manuscript, a different narrative was revealed, one never before known, a truth seen through the eyes of an insider, Judas himself, not through the eyes of outsiders like the other apostles. In this account, only Judas and Jesus truly knew what happened. The story begins by describing Judas as a patriotic Jew, passionate about sparking a revolution to free the Jews from Roman rule. When he heard Jesus preaching about a revolution to free the Jewish people from suffering, Judas followed him, believing that Jesus would lead the revolution he had longed for. But he was disappointed. Jesus had no intention of leading a revolt against the Romans. Instead, he sought a revolution of the soul, a battle against the evil within the human mind, not against rulers on thrones. Judas became angry. He argued with Jesus, saying, "You must first free the body, and then the soul will follow. The Jewish people must be liberated from slavery first." But Jesus had a different view. "No, Judas, we must free the soul. Once the soul is free, the body no longer matters. The soul is the foundation, not the body." This dialogue, as recounted in the ancient manuscript, the Gospel of Judas, reveals their shared concern within their teacher-student relationship. Do you wish to free the Jews from the Romans? I wish to free the soul from sin. Judas grabbed Jesus by the shoulders in frustration and angrily punched an olive tree, saying, "Here is where our paths diverge. First, the body must be freed from the Romans, and then the soul from sin. That is the way. Can you not see it? A house cannot be built from the roof down. It must start from the foundation and rise upwards." Jesus countered, "The foundation is the soul, Judas." At that moment, Judas was completely disillusioned. The foundation is the body. That's where we must begin. Beware, son of Mary. I have told you before, and I will tell you again, beware, choose the path I have shown you. Why do you think I follow you? Well, you should know. It's to show you the way you must go. There was no common ground between Jesus and Judas because their visions of liberation were fundamentally different. Judas was a revolutionary who believed in using force to free the Jewish people, while Jesus adhered to non-violence, advocating a revolution of love that freed the soul rather than the body. This led to a great rift between them. Judas was even sent by his revolutionary group to assassinate Jesus, but he could not do it, for he loved him. And it was precisely because of this love that Judas followed Jesus, despite disagreeing with his revolution of love. Judas truly loved Jesus more than many of the other disciples, and Jesus in turn loved and cherished Judas deeply. Evidence of this is seen in the fact that Jesus confided in Judas things he did not share with any other disciple. And thus the grand play of a journey toward death, followed by resurrection, was conceived by Jesus after his 40 days and nights of solitude in the desert. It was only then that he clearly saw the path he wanted to walk and the message he wished to convey. He desired to face death without fear or hesitation. Through his death, the message of love would be spread in the height of love. One fears nothing, not even death. And with love, all sins are forgiven. With love, one can even forgive those who seek to kill them. If a person no longer fears death, he is fully liberated from all worldly attachments, living a life of brilliance and love. This was the core message Jesus sought to impart. And to disseminate this message, a drama was needed, complete with villains. Jesus himself had written the script for everything. And to fulfill it, he couldn't act alone. He needed someone to assist him, and he chose Judas. I ask again, Master, why did you choose me? Jesus calmly replied, "You know you are the strongest. The others wouldn't be able to endure." Thus, Jesus held Judas in the highest regard, trusting him with his most crucial mission. Human nature is often revealed in momentous situations. It becomes clear in this account that Judas was not only resilient, bold, and determined, but also possessed a deep inner life, sometimes showing vulnerability. When Jesus expressed his decision to embrace death to redeem humanity's souls, Judas was troubled. I asked you before, is there no other way? And Judas couldn't suppress the pain he felt over Jesus' choice to embrace death. The following dialogue offers us insight into the inner depth of Judas Iscariot. You say this to comfort me, so that I may betray you without guilt in my heart. You tell me I have strength. You say it to give me courage. But no, the closer this dreadful hour comes. Master, I cannot bear it. Judas, my brother, you will bear it. Because it must be so. It is necessary that I be killed, and you must betray me. We must save the world. Both of us. Help me." Judas bowed his head. After a moment he asked, "If you had to betray your own master, would you be willing to do it?" Jesus thought for a long while. Finally he said, "No, I don't think I could. That's why God chose me for the easier task to be crucified." Then Jesus took Judas' hand and spoke gently. "Don't abandon me, help me. Have you spoken with the priest Caiaphas? Are the temple guards ready to arrest me? Is everything happening as I planned, Judas? So we will have the Passover feast tonight, and then I will give you the signal to rise and call them. Only 3 days of darkness. It will pass in the blink of an eye, and on the third day, we will dance with joy together on Easter." That's the story. Now let's flip the issue around a bit. Was everything that happened all part of a grand play that Jesus had planned beforehand? It's something everyone seems to have noticed, that Jesus had arranged everything in advance, especially regarding his death on the cross. That's why he refused to defend himself before the governor and declined to escape before the soldiers arrived. Everything happened according to his plan. He wanted to face death, embrace death, and use his death to demonstrate the power of love, forgiveness, and mercy. Forgiving someone who strikes you is one thing, but forgiving someone who kills you is something entirely different. His message was love, that only through love can one accomplish the seemingly impossible. If Jesus hadn't died, how could his message of love have been delivered? So he had to die. He orchestrated his death flawlessly. By proclaiming himself as the king who would lead the Jews to a new realm of freedom and happiness, he created opposition with the Roman authorities, giving them a reason to despise and crucify him. He maneuvered so that even the people despised him, because if they loved him, they might have chosen to spare him when given the option between him and Barabbas. If they had chosen to spare him over Barabbas, the play would have ended prematurely. So he had to ensure they hated him enough to choose crucifixion. That's why he did so many things, overturning the tables in the temple where common people were trading, proclaiming that the wealthy and powerful would never enter heaven. He stirred up enough trouble for himself that eventually everyone hated him and agreed to crucify him on the cross. Everything that happened was what was meant to happen, all according to his plan. So without Judas, this plan could not have been completed. Judas was the most crucial villain in helping Jesus fulfill his mission. Being captured is one thing, but being betrayed by one's closest companion is something else entirely. And in that betrayal, Jesus' love was still vast enough to forgive all, multiplying the message of love and forgiveness many times over. The worst evil was used as a platform to elevate the greatest good to its highest potential. Without the Joker, could Batman exist? Without Voldemort, would Harry's courage ever be acknowledged? Without Snape, how could we understand what true sacrifice really means? The villain has its own meaning and is no less important than the hero. And accepting the role of the villain to be misunderstood, scorned, insulted, and disrespected for eternity, just as Judas did, is something altogether different. We doubt many people could shoulder that responsibility. And if that story were true, would you have the courage and objectivity to appreciate Judas, the one forever labeled as the betrayer? Millennia have passed, and yet people still judge Judas as utterly wicked. All this stems from the fact that the story has only ever been told from the perspective of Jesus' other disciples, not from Jesus himself, and certainly not from Judas. Jesus did not condemn Judas, yet people have taken it upon themselves to do so, perhaps not out of love for Jesus, but because they needed someone to blame, a scapegoat to ease their own guilt for participating in Jesus' death. They felt responsible, and instead of holding themselves accountable, they found Judas and placed all the burden of blame upon him. But perhaps Judas' death should have been a blessed one, just like Jesus' own death. Every death deserves to be blessed when a person has fulfilled their mission on this earth. Sometimes that mission is known only to them, beyond the understanding of others. For over 2,000 years, Judas has been despised for betraying Jesus, and even his death has been condemned. Therefore, if we entertain the idea once more that the story is true, perhaps we should refrain from judging others if we wish to carry forward Jesus' message in its purest form. It could be that Judas did not seek death out of guilt or remorse for betraying Jesus, but rather because he knew he had completed the task his master had entrusted him with. Judas felt no need to justify his actions, for even if he had, who would listen? And even if people did listen, it would only create more complications. If the truth were known that Judas handed over Jesus at his own request, and that it was all part of a predetermined plan, how could the message of Jesus' love triumphing over sin and death ever be fulfilled? It was better to let people misunderstand, as long as the message of his master was spread. Judas could not continue living amidst such misunderstandings. He was a man of integrity. How could he live in silence while being so grossly misjudged? Perhaps it was a moment of weakness that drove him to seek death, seeing no reason to continue living. Whatever the reason, Judas' death carries a significant message even now, though it remains steeped in controversy. He was, in fact, a truer disciple than the rest, steadfast in his mission, despite being misunderstood and scorned by the world. Judas' love for Jesus was greater than his love for himself, which is why he chose death over explaining or defending himself. In that, Judas was truly steadfast and courageous, much like Snape. Do you think Snape revealed the truth to Harry about all that he had done because he wanted Harry to feel guilty and pity him? No. The reason he had to tell Harry was because it was a necessary step in the process. Harry had to know the whole truth in order to destroy the final Horcrux and defeat Voldemort. Snape never sought Harry's love, but without Snape's love, Harry would have never succeeded. Judas was the same. He didn't need humanity to understand or sympathize with him. But without his loyalty and sacrifice, the world would have never known a message of such profound and boundless love. So in the end, no matter what the truth is, no matter what you think of Judas, and no matter whether you believe this story or not, if you have to choose to stand on the side of trust and love, not on the side of contempt and judgment. Choose to believe in things that warm your heart, make you happy, and fill you with love for life and others. Believe in the power of love, even in the things you cannot fully explain. And believe in the message of Jesus. When love is strong enough, one can do anything. And remember this, especially if you love Jesus, never judge anyone. No matter what they have done, God does not judge anyone. And if he does, it is his work, not ours. Do not try to take his work into your hands. If you've made it this far with the blessing of God, share this with your loved ones so they too can know about this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so we are encouraged to create more videos about the Bible. We hope to see you in the next video. May God bless and protect you always. Amen.